I know my last video was just about PVZ3 Evolved, but it almost sparked an interest in me. I haven't made a PVZ3 tier list yet. You viewers know that I love doing tier lists, so I decided that today I'm gonna rank every tier 2 plant in PVZ3 Evolved. Yeah, every tier 2 plant. Little side note, Koala PVZ did pull up with a similar video where he ranks every plant in PVZ3 Evolved, but trust me, this video is a little different, I think. But anyway, let's rank and analyze all of PVZ3 Evolved's tier 2 plants. We're starting off with a plant that I believe is crazy stacked. I don't know if I'm putting him this high up because I'm biased, but I really believe that Bamboo Shoots is so fun to play with. There's a lot to him. He's a fusion of a Potato Mind and a Peashooter. And Potato Mind does suck booty cheeks in PVZ3 Evolved, but I have to admit that this fusion is an exception. So how Bamboo Shoots works is that he fires explosive projectiles at whatever target in his lane. These said missiles will deal damage to every zombie around a small area, his second damage being 40, his primary attack is pretty nice though, 170, and he can also knock walkers back 0.375 tiles away. And best of all, it'll deal damage to whatever obstacles, even the annoying ones like the block of cheese, which I still hate that there's no Gravebuster of some kind, by the way. Yeah, for a tier 2 plant, the fact that he can do so much and only cost 125 sun, it would be silly not to put it as high as possible. Again, maybe I am biased because Bamboo Shoots is fun to play with, but I'm gonna put him the amazing tier. Low amazing tier though. His speed is pretty slow compared to other plants. In fact, he's one of the newer plants in the new update. I really like how flexible this plant is. I honestly don't know how I fully feel about Chugnut. Chugnut is a combination of cabbage pulp and walnut. One thing I like about him is how unique he is. When a zombie's in range, he will lob a little chestnut that damages zombies in a 1x3 area. Though it doesn't simply hurt the zombies, it can block forthcoming ones, pretty much obstructing them and preventing them from moving forward, acting as a small defense plant too. I mean, yeah, this could be pretty useful. It does look like it deals heavy damage, although it only deals 80. For reference, a Slaw Slinger only does 94. And in my opinion, it's easier to get a plant like Slaw Slinger than Chugnut, with the fact that Walnut does have a slower recharge time, which means you'll be able to get Slaw Slingers faster than Chugnuts. It doesn't help that his attack speed is pretty slow compared to other lobbers, which means that when there are larger groups than usual, it's gonna get completely overwhelmed and it will fall apart as a main attack plant. And if you guys know anything about the third game, it loves to spam zombies. So yes, Chugnut in those times where there aren't so many, especially the earlier levels, is a great plant if you're gonna use him as a main attack plant. But once further levels come in, you are a little screwed. It doesn't help that when there are unsodded or water tiles, Chugnut is the worst plant to use. Chugnut's attacks typically depend on the zombie accompanying empty tiles. So if this criteria isn't met and the tiles that zombies are on are wet or unsodded like mentioned, then the Chugnut will not attack. Therefore, not only does it fail in larger groups, sometimes it can be situational. But the reason why I emphasize main attacker is that what people don't know is that Chugnut is meant to be a support plant. Place him with other attack plants and you'll notice he's great at stalling other zombies out. I feel like if people think about him as a main one, he does suck. But since I believe he's meant to be defensive and supportive, he's okay. Therefore, I'm gonna put him in the okay tier. Sunflower seed. Now this plant isn't really that good. I'm gonna say that straight up. It's a combination of walnut and sunflower, and it acts as a defender that when it's attacked, it'll produce sun. Well, the thing is, the sunflower seed doesn't necessarily produce sun every time it's bit, like small bits of sun, which is how I believe it should be, though it's only each degraded stage. And it'll only produce 50. Yeah, it'll produce the same amount of sun as a basic twin sunflower for a fusion that costs 175 sun. Now you can see why this plant sucks. And honestly, not only is it inefficient as a sun producing plant, but it's pretty incompetent when defending your lawn as well. It has a similar problem to Chugnut, but Chugnut's infinitely better, where once it deals with a large number of zombies, it's really a plant that you could only use for basic levels rather than harder levels as you progress further. Sunflower seed has 3,250 health. A plant like Lychee, which would cost 150 sun, has 5,000. That's 7,050 more than sunflower. Even Peanut has more, 6,500. So other tier 2 defense plants have much better defense. I don't understand when they couldn't bump up its health, though I understand they wanted to degrade faster, but if that's the case, why not bump the sun a little higher? At that point, it's way more efficient to use twin sunflowers, which are 25 sun less and easier to combine, as again, walnut does have a slow recharge time compared to other tier 1 plants. Yeah, I don't really understand this plant. This plant really should be a Lychee that produces sun rather than attack. It really does have wasted potential. Bad tier. It's really easy to get sun in this game. I really don't recommend this gal. Speaking of sun plants, we have Solar Pea. Solar Pea used to be one of my favorite PVZ3 Evolved designs. It's so simple, but look how silly it looks. But yeah, Solar Pea is a combination of sunflower and Peashooter, if it isn't clear by the Peashooter head slapped on top of petals. Believe it or not, Solar Pea does actually do more damage than Peashooter, which is what puts it kind of above and kind of saves it. Peashooter does a small 20 damage, while Solar Pea does 45. Though similar to Sunflower Seed, Podcast decided to make his mechanic pretty strange. On every 7th hit, it'll produce sun, but it doesn't produce 50 for some reason. It will produce 35. That's a really random, odd number. Why the 7th hit? Who knows? I would have honestly had it where it will produce really small amounts of sun each time a P damages a zombie. Though whatever, it is what it is. I don't really recommend it as a sun producing plant. It does shine in that department where you place 4 or 5 lanes of them. That's when you do get a lot of sun fairly fast though. That requires you to place more than 2 columns. I just think that collecting sun is way too easy to be using a 150 sun plant like Solar Pea. Rather than combining it to create a sun producing and attack plant fusion, I would recommend just using your basic sun plants as they would produce sun so much faster, and you can use high attack plants, separating it from the sun producing. Again, its saving grace is its extra damage, but apart from that, it's mostly just an okay plant. I don't really care much about it. If it wasn't so effortless to get sun, then I would move it from the okay tier to a little higher, but basic sun producing plants work better enough to have to use this okay tier if it wasn't obvious. Puff-Shroom is unusual. Some of you viewers are probably shocked that Puff-Shroom is a fusion. Yep, he is. He's a fusion of Peashooter and Sun Shroom. Yes, this does mean that Puff-Shroom is not 0 sun anymore and would now technically cost 125 sun. There are reasons for this, but even if there are, I don't know how I feel about this. The whole point of Puff-Shroom in the first game is that he's meant to be a 0 sun cost plant that is useful for the nighttime, with the fact that sun doesn't fall from the sky. That's what makes Puff-Shroom so effective. It's absolutely perfect for such a situation, because even if it is a situational plant, it carries night and fog levels. It just made sense to use him. He's also useful in PVZ too, as he could be used in any world, though he has a limitation. I don't necessarily think this is a bad limitation though. Of course, a fast 0 sun plant is going to have one. That's why he has a limitation, because he's so overpowered, so of course he needs to be held back. So why is Puff-Shroom, a plant that doesn't cost 0 sun anymore and now technically costs 125, has the same limitation that it does in PVZ3 Evolved? And again, it ruins the whole point of what it was supposed to be in the first game. Hell, you could even argue it's a completely different plant at this point. Yes, they do make use of it being 125 sun. It does more than Repeater, 72 damage, and Repeater only does 60. So okay, yeah, that's somewhat useful, but Repeater stays in the lawn the entire time and is only 75 more sun, in a game where it is easy to collect sun by the way, with 12 less damage. So why not just use Repeater at that point? Why would you use Puff-Shroom? Well, there are certain levels in PVZ3 Evolved that saves Puff-Shroom from ending up in the E tier and putting it in the okay. It's pretty useful in the sewers. The sewers are pretty much the nighttime levels of PVZ3 Evolved. There's not much sun drop. This must mean that Puff-Shrooms and Sun Shrooms don't have this limitation because they're in the dark. Well, not really. There's actually shade tiles where mushrooms have to be placed in order for them not to disintegrate through time, so they can't even be used in every lane in the sewers. Yes, I do like the shade mechanic, though this does mean that Puff-Shroom can still be pretty bad even in the levels they're okay in. Thankfully, I will still give Puff-Shroom the fact that in these sewer levels, just as long as you place them on the shade, they can be a cheaper alternative to other higher sun plants. So I will give it a spot in the okay tier. It's just a very weird plant, and Puff-Shroom really should have been a 0 sun tier 1 plant with the same limitations as the second game. Iceweed, a former PVZ2 plant. Iceweed, if it's not obvious, is a combination of iceberg lettuce and spikeweed. Iceweed is one of the newer fusions. If it's not clear, he's obviously meant for the volcano environment. Whenever zombies step on him, they will suffer piercing damage of 12 and get chilled, slowing their movement speed for 4 seconds. I have to admit that this game does piercing plants very wrong. Any spikeweed variation in this game is done completely wrong with the fact that their damage is always so low and the spikeweed just doesn't do much. It's like they got melee plants, caressed them, gave them a big kiss on the forehead. Then they looked at spikeweed plants and they kicked them to another planet. Iceweed doing 12 damage isn't really that high, to be honest. A lot of zombies, even basic ones, can pass by and completely ignore it, like if it was a minor inconvenience, depending on the level of the zombies. I think with the fact that you need iceberg lettuce, a plant that you would have to use for other ice plants like cold slaw or nippy cabbage, which to be honest are way better plants than iceweed, makes it look worse. Unfortunately, iceweed is just so overshadowed by these plants and doesn't look so good with its low damage. I don't really see what iceweed can do that these other 2 plants mentioned can't do a little better. Higher damage and not so dangerously up close. It doesn't help that iceweed is supposed to be best for volcano levels, and since iceweeds are best up close, they're going to be hit by meteors. You're not going to put Jumbrella Leaf so close, that'd be a little silly. At least iceweed shines when you place them in front of defense plants. They can chill zombies, so their chewing speeds on set defense plants will be slower. It works amazingly with plants like Endurian, to be honest. They can also hit multiple zombies at once, and it's the only spikeweed plant that cannot be crushed by the magma zombie, so of course I can't help but place him a little higher. Therefore, good tier. Fun fact, I think Code Slaw is based on an older concept from the first PVZ game that never came to be. That's actually kind of neat. But anyway, I like Code Slaw. I obviously brought him up before in Iceweed segment because I say he's a little better than Iceweed. Code Slaw is a tough lobber. He can do 66 damage, and if it's not clear, he can chill whatever zombies it lobs at. It's supposed to be a counter towards Nacho Knot zombie. That's a plus, but this is just for one specific zombie. But still, it can slow down balloon zombies or screen door ones too. I just think that lobber plants, especially Code Slaw, is useful because it can ignore obstacles that PVZ3 Evolved really loves unnecessarily overwhelming the lawn with. You don't have to worry about gravestones and the Blocko cheeses, which I despise. I hate these things. They can be countered by Umbrella Leaves, but they still spawn without being able to avoid them sometimes. And the Coleslaw is one of the only plants that can remove them fairly fast. Unlike Puff-Shroom, this is a high damage plant that really fits its environment and can handle a lot of different plants. Amazing tier. Golden Yukon isn't really a plant that I use that much. Not because it's bad or anything. Well, actually, it is pretty bad. I just don't see myself using potato mines that much for some reason. Golden Yukon, a combination of sunflower and potato mine. How he works is that once you combine them, when a zombie steps on them, he will release sun. You guessed it, it's only 60 sun. Wow, that's nothing. What's the point of using him at all when he only bursts 10 extra sun than what a basic twin sunflower can produce? The main highlight supposedly is that Golden Yukon can technically be an instant potato mine, but in order for it to be an instant is that you have to place a sunflower first, not the potato mine, making the Golden Yukon ignite immediately. I don't know if this is on purpose, but it is a strength. It also does 529 damage. A basic potato mine only does 400. So yeah, it is an upgrade from the basic one and can technically instant kill zombies around it, but it's no multiple area explosion. It's a 1x1 explosion. I just can't see much for this plant. It got heavily nerfed, to be honest. Sorry, but it's going in the A tier. Lychee is so cute, and honestly, for a tier 2 plant, it's a great defense and can carry your game heavily. Lychee is a mini Endurian, sorta, with shoot on. Not only can it deal damage on whatever zombie's chewing on it, but in a 3x3 area as well. This is 20 damage. It's equivalent to a Peashooter, though its attack speed is quicker, so it's way more effective than just basic damage. With 5000 defense too, I believe with how cheap Lychee is, 150 sun, a 3x3 area defense plant that can do as much defense and attack as it does, of course, I'm gonna place it high up. This is a good example of a plant that works well on both sides of its coin from the plants that fuse together to create it, unlike other plants mentioned above like Sunflower Seed or Golden Yukon. And the best part, it can take care of pigeon zombies, which I believe are the most annoying zombies ever. So of course, it deserves its spot in the great tier. Two Sun Shrooms end up making this big old guy. Look at him, he's so big. I believe Giant Sun Shroom is a great sun producing plant. There are limitations, yes, but let's start with what he does. He will produce 75 sun every 20 seconds. Okay, that's not bad. Another 100 sun producing plant, the Twin Sunflower, only produces 52 sun every 20 seconds. Technically making Giant Sunflower a better plant. Obviously, you're going to use Giant Sun Shroom a lot in sewer levels. It's very effective with it, but obviously its tier 3 counterpart is way better, so I can't put it so high. And there's still the limitation of it disappearing in non-sewer levels, and it disappears really fast. Yeah, not much else to say about this guy. It is tremendously situational, but in those set situations, it's very effective as a sun-producing plant. Good tier. Gremonade is Gremonade. I am put off by its design only because when I look at it, I see Alistair and I hate Has-Been Hotel. But let's ignore that unsettling comparison and talk about the plant itself. Gremonade is a combination of two lime bombs. Lime bombs are the only original PVZ3 evolved tier 1 plant at this current moment. They're a caustic trap that has a short arming time, exploding and dealing acidic damage. It sucks by itself, but yeah, Gremonade is very similar except it does a 3x3 area effect and deals 617 damage. Honestly, there's not much else I can say about him. He's alright, but you're not gonna see me use Gremonade by itself. It is a great plant purely for the fact that you need it to create Tangerine, but why would you really use it for anything else? You're so limited with Lime Bomb with its slower recharge time that I really don't recommend using it on its own. But if you were to, I guess it's not entirely useless. If you have a large group of zombies and you want to take care of them quickly, go ahead and use Gremonade, so I guess I'll put it in the okay tier. Speargrass isn't a bad plant at all. I still have the belief that this game does spikeweed and infusion so wrong, but Speargrass isn't necessarily a full-on spikeweed plant. Zombies don't step on it anymore. Since it's a combination of Bonk Choy and spikeweed, it will act as a melee plant that can pierce through zombies. Its best thing is its range. 3 tiles ahead to be specific. I'm surprised that isn't spikeweed's whole thing is that you need to be up close in order for it to be attacked by at all. A 3 tile range is pretty far. I'm not complaining or anything, I'm just shocked. Though I suppose what's supposed to make it part spikeweed is the fact that unlike other melee plants, attacks, it can pierce through zombies, and Spikeweed is known for being able to pierce a lot of them. Another detail about Speargrass is that at the end of its range, whatever zombie is there will receive extra damage. What I mean by this is the zombies in front of it will receive 50, and the ones behind it will receive 70. It's unique, it does good enough damage, although it's a little lower compared to other melee plants, its range is great, but unfortunately, it's going against other melee plants that are incredible compared to Speargrass. So sadly, Speargrass cannot compete with them. Good tier. I wish its damage was a little higher. Electric Peashooter, in my opinion, is similar to Puff-Shroom, where the whole point of it is ruined. Electric Peashooter and PVZ2 was a Peashooter with peas that were long range. The peas did low damage, but they were able to grow across multiple zombies at the same time as it traveled through an entire lane. This made the Electric Peashooter extremely unique and very effective. So, how did PVZ3 Evolve nerf it? Well, the Electric Peashooter's peas don't travel across an entire lane. It doesn't do that at all, actually. I don't really get why they did this. Now, in my opinion, it's significantly worse. How it works now is that it will shoot a ball of lightning like in the second game, but it will instead zap 3 zombies in the same lane. So now, it's just a P that can target 3 zombies rather than 1. That's all there is to it. They don't have the electric votes that occur around other zombies in other lanes anymore. They're just straight up normal basic Ps. I believe that not only does this weaken the Electric Peashooter, the Ps only deal 33 damage, it also makes it a little more boring as well. Electric Peashooter was one of my favorite PVZ2 plants. It's not horrible, but I really don't like it when you compare it to how unique and capable it was as its predecessor. There's another electric plant that personally is so much better and outclasses it. Maybe that's why I'm being so hard on him. It's nothing crazy, but he does less damage than a repeater. Don't get me started on his secondary damage. It's 12. Now that is a definition of F tier. At least I can sort of handle these scout leaders. Nippy Cabbage is what I mean by melee plants being crazy powerful. For a tier 2 plant, the damage and its use is out of this world. Not to glaze or anything, but it's the truth. First of all, she's really easy to obtain sun cost wise. She only requires 1 iceberg lettuce and 1 Bonk Choy. Only 125 sun in total for a melee plant that can deal 94 damage. Believe it or not, Bonk Choy can actually deal higher damage than Nippy Cabbage, 135 in comparison to Nippy Cabbage 94. Though the difference is, and what makes Nippy in my opinion a little better, is the fact that it can chill whatever zombies it punches. If it's not clear by the ice around its fists, Nippy Cabbage is a perfect combination with the fact that typically melee plants get up close and personal with zombies, making them a little vulnerable when inundated. A Nippy Cabbage being able to slow down movement and attack speed to whatever zombies in front of it lessens the chance of it being in any sort of danger. If it's not clear, the Nippy Cabbage is meant for the volcano levels, and the fact that it's so effective in them, similar in to Coleslaw, is what put her so high up in this list. She deals extra damage to zombies native to these volcano levels, a 3 times elemental damage to be exact, making it 100 times more powerful, but it's also not like Puff-Shroom where if you put it in non-volcano levels, it's hopeless. Best part of all, it's effective against volcanologist zombies. Volcano levels are already annoying enough, so the fact that I have the perfect counter against these obnoxious digger zombies is just the cherry on top. Good job, Nippy Cabbage. You're going to the amazing tier. Jumbrella Leaf isn't bad, but there's something that I find weird about Jumbrella. Jumbrella Leaf is a combination of 2 Umbrella Leaves. Umbrella Leaf is only able to block lightning or meteor strikes until its leaves run out. It's very limited, only 3 number of charges. When you upgrade it to Jumbrella Leaf though, you will have 8 charges this time. The reason why it's not infinite is because Blockwood is. But that's not the strange part. What is weird, and this is also weird about other Umbrella Leaf upgrades too, is that the area of effect remains the same. I know they do this so it wouldn't be too powerful, or do they want the meteor strikes to be extra hard? But shouldn't Jumbrella Leaf, meant to be better than Umbrella Leaf, at least be able to block a slightly larger area compared to its first tier? Not even Blockwood has a larger area to block. Why is that? It doesn't need to be a massive area for Jumbrella Leaf, but it can be extended to give the player a larger reason to use it, apart from the fact the Umbrella Leaf can run out of leaves. Umbrella Leaf is only 50 sun. He's easily replaceable. Of course, I'm gonna still upgrade Umbrella Leaf into a Jumbrella so I don't have to keep replacing him over and over again, but I can't pretend like Jumbrella is this amazing upgrade either. He's just okay. He's good at what he does, but I believe there should be more to him. At least he can block meteors. Not many plants can do that. It sucks. There's nothing to say about him. Winter Greens is a pretty bad plant. In fact, most instant fusions or instant plants at all in PVZ3 Evolved are pretty bad, as they're honestly sort of pointless. Let's start with its damage output. It has the same damage as Gremonade, 617. Though similar to Gremonade, there's a secondary effect to it as well. It will release a frosty cloud that will damage and freeze whatever zombies on its tile for 12 seconds. It does 3 times 3 damage, but of course, it's a secondary damage that makes Winter Greens a bad plant. It does freeze all of them for the same amount of time, time, but the secondary damage is a low 305. Why not have it where wintergreens can have the same high damage on all 3 lanes rather than having a random lower number for its surroundings? It's like if Cherry Bomb for some reason lessen its damage in the rows up and below just because. I don't see the point in using an important plant like iceberg lettuce on an instant. Use it for coleslaw or nippy cabbage. Hell, use it on iceweed. Wintergreens is just unnecessary. It can be triggered prematurely by other weaker zombies as you can't just place it instantly. You have to place down one iceberg lettuce and then wait for the next. And iceberg lettuce does take a while to load. And there's just other ice-related plants that are 10 times better. Bad tier. Prickerel Weed is similar to Chucknut in a way that it works best when it's a support plant, because by itself, I don't really recommend it. Prickerel Weed is meant to be an aquatic plant. It's a fusion of Tangle Kelp and Spikeweed, so of course it's best to use underwater. I praise Nippy Cabbage for being so great in volcano levels, so how does Prickerel Weed hold up in their respective levels? And how do they work in the first place? Well, Prickerel Weed is pretty much a Spikeweed underwater. It'll pierce whatever zombies step on it, and when it's underwater, its attack will increase tremendously. Another thing that makes it so inefficient underwater is that it will also spawn additional attack units on adjacent water tiles. What I mean by this is that even if there's not a Prickerel Weed spawned in a specific lane, and there are other Prickerel Weeds around it, if a zombie crosses that empty lane, they said weeds in vicinity will still attack those walkers. That's not just easy damage on empty lanes when you're still working on your setup, but it's also additional damage even when you do have Prickerel Weeds all over the water. A plant that can multi-target will always be a competent plant. I will say that a downside is that water tiles are very randomized. If you have a level where water tiles are all the way back and there's none or barely any forward, you're not gonna really use Prickerel Weed because he will serve no purpose. It sucks that there's not much attacking aquatic plants at this current update. There's Zapture, then Prickerel Weed, then that's mostly it. Shame. Anyway, Prickerel Weed is going in the great tier. Pine Needler is a plant that you use when you're bored and you just want to try it out just because. It sucks. Not that the premise itself sucks, the stats are the problem. You know how I talked about Electric Peashooter's thing was that his peas were able to pierce through multiple zombies? Well, this is Pine Needler, though without the votes. Pine Needler is a combination of Spikeweed and Peashooter, and the damage is horrendous. It does 20 damage, the same as a basic Peashooter. Why on earth would you ever want to waste 175 sun or space on a plant that can deal basic tier 1 damage? I don't see the point. A lot of other plants completely outshine it. The only thing that doesn't put them down in the bad tier is that at the end of the day, a projectile that can pierce through multiple zombies is slightly effective for large groups, though you need to spam a lot of Pine Needlers in order for it to be effective or level it up fairly high. Ant tier. Bonk Choy, the third PVZ2 plant in this game. Bonk Choy pretty much works exactly like it does in the first game. There are 2 differences from PVZ3 Evolve to the second game. The first difference is that rather than dealing 15 damage per punch, he'll deal 135 damage. That's quite the difference, not gonna lie. Though I believe PVZ2 Bonk Choy punches zombies faster. I could be wrong though. The second difference is that PVZ3 Bonk Choy has secondary damage. This says secondary damage deals 270, pretty high compared to its first hit. Bonk Choy isn't a bad plant, though if we were to compare it to a melee plant like Nippy is still significantly better. Its show effect and usefulness in volcanoes is hard to ignore, as well as the fact that Nippy Cabbage only costs 125 sun when combining both. Bonk Choy requires 2 Bonk Choys being 200 sun, but it does its job. Melee plants still continue to carry this game. There's a reason why they created the Counter Punch Zombie, just so they could have a zombie that can counter melee plants. It's not a very creative name though. Counter Punch Zombie. Oh, so that's an imp, not a zombie? Whatever. Bonk Choy is going in the good tier. At first, I wasn't sure whether or not I love this plant. I never really use it compared to some other plants. And second, it's technically an instant, and most instants in this game fell. And Wrangle Kelp does have a similar problem to plants like Wintergreen, where Wrangle Kelp is best to use for up close, as they'll pull enemies in and deal high 630 damage. So you need to upgrade Tangle Kelp first. But basic enemies could come in, and you will lose your Tangle Kelp or Wrangle Kelp before you can even use him to his fullest potential. Tangle Kelp does take time to recharge, 10 seconds, which it is a lot to get a lot of Wrangle Kelps out in the line in the first place. The good thing is that at least Wrangle Kelp doesn't immediately go out like Wintergreen's does. It has a limitation of 3 attacks. I just feel like they really need extra seed slots and to give us an imitator. Without an imitator, it's hard for any of the instant plants to be of any use when most instant plants require a plant that takes a bit to recharge. You will get pretty lucky if any instant plant will last long enough to handle waves of zombies. Wrangle Kelp is no exception, except it's only good on the water. At least it doesn't go away immediately. Tier. Lightning Reed is what Electric Peashooter should have been. I know I've already complained about Peashooter a lot, but what I like about electric plants is their ability to chain and affect lanes above and below. They aren't just singular attacks, so the fact that the Peashooter only be able to affect one lane and no other one was really disappointing. Reed though plays out similarly to the second game, where attacks chain to 2 more zombies and 2 adjacent tiles, whether it's above or below. The difference is that in the second game, Lightning Reed's primary and second attacks occur below and above or the same damage. In the third third game, the primary damage is 42, while its secondary attacks from above and below do a small 6. I don't really like how small the damage is, that barely does anything. What's the point of even having it? But even then, at least it's no chain damage at all. Having a plant like Electro Weed who can damage multiple lanes is similar to Prickerel Weed, where it helps with crowds of zombies, and PVZ3, as said multiple times, loves spamming, so we need those plants that can cover more than one singular zombie. Let's be honest, Bonk Choy is a million times better. He's not in this tier list though. Obviously, if the tier 3 plants were in this tier list, Lychee wouldn't be in the great tier list, and Dorian would be. Since Bonk Choy isn't here though, I will put Lightning Reed in the good tier. He's definitely a high one, but not potent enough to be in the great or amazing. Sling Pea. Sling Pea is very similar to Electro Weed for an obvious reason, the fact that it can target multiple lanes. If you don't know how Sling Pea works, he's a fusion of Cabbage Pole and Peashooter and can only lob 3 peas at once, striking targets not only in its lane, but both adjacent lanes as well. I really recommend spamming this plant. Don't just keep a lane of them, but rather at least 3, though this could apply to Electro Weed as well. Sling Pea's peas actually do higher than the Peashooter, which is shocking, 40 damage. So a level 1 Sling Pea lobs peas that are higher than a level 2 repeater. The best part, Sling Pea has a Peashooter's range. You would expect Sling Pea to have to be a little closer to the lawn, so you can put it all the way back where you put your sun producers. This is actually new. This was a recent rebalance, as before they only had a 3x3 range. So yeah, a 40 damage lobber with a 3x3 area effect obviously would be useful. Though, are there any cons? Well, yes. If there's only 1 or 2 zombies in the lawn, it will only fire 1 pea, not 3. I believe that if there aren't 3 zombies in the lawn, the Sling Pea should still be able to lob these 3 peas. Just target the only ones there with those set peas. Maybe that's just me being a little ungrateful. Great tier. Devastator used to be an interesting addition that for some reason they removed a certain mechanic. When Devastator would blow up, it would spawn in an additional potato mine. This came in handy, but now it's just another instant plant that fails just like Wintergreen's Wrangle Kelp or Gremonade does. Yes, it does have high damage, 802, but again, it has secondary damage that does less. An instant plant like this should do the same damage to the entire area around it. It feels so inconsistent that it deals this massive amount of destruction in a singular lane, that around it, it's not the same damage at all. And tell me why the Devastator cannot kill the Gargantuar in 2 hints like a normal potato mine would in the first game. A Gargantuar in PVZ3 Evolved has 5,400 health. 2 Devastators will deal 1,764 damage. This makes barely a difference to a Gargantuar's health. It will take 6 Devastators to kill a Gargantuar. Even then, there will still be health left as 6 Devastators do 5,292 damage. I don't know if this is just Devastator being devastatingly weak, see what I did there, or PVZ3 Evolved programmers not knowing how to balance the zombies with the plants. But realizing this, instant plants do really suck. Devastator especially, S tier. Maybe I'm a little too cruel with these instant plants. Who knows, guys? Let me know in the comments. Sawgrass. Yeah, Spikeweed fusions are just done so wrong in this game. Iceweed at least had the ability to freeze zombies and chill them, so of course he wasn't going to be so bad. But Sawgrass, he's tiny little levels of bad. I don't see why you would use him. I actually don't even see why you would use this plant at all. You're telling me that a plant that's a whole shtick is to be walked on now is a plant that attacks directly in front of it and does 8 damage? It has the same DPS as Spikeweed and somehow attacks slower? Even leveling it up, it just increases by 1. A level 3 Sawgrass only does 11 damage. This plant would technically cost 200 sun. Spikeweed is also a plant that you would need to create Snow Conifer and Zapture, 2 plants that are 10 times better than Sawgrass, so why waste your Spikeweeds on this? Sawgrass is officially the last plant in the bad tier. Little side note I noticed as well, pigeons were actually changed so that they can move down to chew on Spikeweed fusions. This was meant to make it easier for them to kill the pigeons, though it actually makes it harder. So Spikeweed fusions can't even do the direct counters correctly now either. Spikeweed fusions were done so wrong. Taunt was kind of done wrong in PVZ2 because it wouldn't really do that much in terms of being able to block other zombies. It wasn't versatile like in the first game. Taunt went from being the best defense plant apart from Pumpkin to being an alright plant that its only pro was having high defense. How about now? Well, thankfully it is flexible to a lot of other zombies, not just 1 or 2, like balloon zombies, bowling zombies, nacho knot zombies, and pole falter, and it can tank 3 Gargantuar hits. That's kinda crazy. Finally, Taunt is considered an actual genuine helpful plant rather than just a defense plant with a lot of toughness, because he was way more than that, so I'm glad they did him right here. I do believe that Lychee is a better defense plant though. It does die a lot easier, but it handles pigeons, a really annoying set of enemies, much better than Taunt or other Spikeweed plants. It's also easier to put back, with Lychee taking a short 10 seconds to put back and Taunt taking a long 20. So yeah, Taunt is slightly outclassed by Lychee, but it's not by so much. I'm still gonna put Taunt in the great tier. It does still have its high 8,000 health. I'm honestly not gonna say much about Repeater. Repeater is alright. He's one of those tier 2 plants that you're not gonna use that much by itself compared to other ones that you might, like Nippy Cabbage, Lychee, or Coleslaw. Because even when the game first starts, it encourages you to use Repeater in order to combine it to the Sling Pea. Of course, this could be said for a lot of other tier 2 fusions like Reed, Twin Sunflower, or Slaw Slinger, but I believe with Reed and the two other plants mentioned work well by themselves while you're in the process of combining them into tier 3 plants. You can't simply combine tier 2 plants into tier 3 ones immediately. For plants like Punk Shocker and Sun Tower, they take some time to create. You need 2 of the same tier 2 plants in order to combine them. Same could apply for Sling Pea. He does take a bit to create. So does Repeater hold up on its own? I mean, yeah, sure. Like I said, I don't have much to say about him. Each P does 30 damage, 10 damage more than Peashooter, so that means in total Repeater does 60 damage, rather than just 40 like in PVZ2. Good tier. Twin Sunflower is the same case as Repeater. Sun Tower is 10 times better than it, but in the context of tier 2 plants, it's 10 times better than Golden Yukon and Sunflower Seed, but I believe it's a teensy tiny better than Solar Pea. It produces 52 sun. Why 52? I have no idea. That's so specific, but PVZ3 Evolved has those weird random stats. Like a level 5 Sunflower, for some reason, generates, oh my god, 67 sun. How could this be? Anyway, Twin Sunflower is going in the good tier. Now, the peanut, you're not gonna believe it, but the peanut is actually good. Yeah, that's shocking because PVZ2 peanut sucks, but peanut is just as good, if not better than Lychee technically. The reason why I say this is because Lychee only has 5,000 health. Peanut has a whopping 6,500, and it's a similar concept too. It shoots 2 peas that are the same damage as Repeaters. Well, no, my bad guys, it does 31 damage, not 30. I told you PVZ3 Evolved has these weird random extra stats. So technically, like I said, peanut is similar to Lychee and even does more damage, but Lychee does have that pro in being slightly cheaper than Peanut, but also able to kill pigeons, blah blah blah. It can also technically hurt multiple zombies at once, just as long as they're chewing on him. Peanut strictly targets whatever zombie is close to him, but I'm actually surprised to see that certain people think that Peanut in PVZ3 sucks. The problem with Peanut in PVZ2 was because he was a premium plant that hit and defended like a basic one. At least now he's upgraded and it's just as good as Lychee. Statistically, it's hard to ignore that for a tier 2 plant, he's very valuable, so he earns his controversial, shocking spot in the great tier. And for Slaw Slinger, I don't really have a lot to say, but I will say its damage is slightly higher than Repeater. A cabbage can do 40 seconds, so I'll put it beside the Repeater in a high good tier. So there it is. Those are all the tier 2 plants from PVZ3 Evolved ranked. Obviously guys, this is just my opinion and I could be wrong about some of these. If you disagree or even agree, comment down below. I love reading others' opinions. Of course, I'm 100% going to do a ranking on tier 3 plants as well. So I'm gonna wait until they add newer plants most likely. That's about it guys. See ya.